Tortorich, welcome back for round two, man. Happy to see you.
Thanks for having me. It's always great, Brent. I always enjoy chatting with you.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And I just want to give you a shout out, man. I know we talked about this a little bit the first time you were on. You were like my fourth episode, man. And you're such a big, have such a big influence, and you've been around forever. I just want to thank you for sort of giving me sort of an opportunity to interview somebody like you. And I know that you said you're kind of paying it forward, and Adam did it for you and that sort of thing. But I want to tell you, like from the bottom of my heart, like I really, really appreciate it, because if you're looking at pure metrics, like there's no reason you should be talking to me right now. So I just greatly appreciate your time, man.
Well, thank you, but it's I think we've talked about this before, but it's worth saying again. A lot of times people they'll call me on their first podcast, and I'll go, "Yeah," and they'll go, "You realize we don't have one listener yet?" I went, "Yeah, but you might.
Hmm.
You never know." And you know, I will do anyone within reason. Let's be honest.
Sure.
If someone wants to call and hang me out to dry, and I get a lot of those requests too, and,
Hmm.
and I'll do a lot of those podcasts, where I know that they want to do the gotcha moment. And okay, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, if that's how you want to waste your time or spend your time, I'm good. But when people call and say, "Hey, would you be on my podcast?" and I don't think I've ever turned anyone down. And that's been like 11 years now,
Man.
you know?
Well, yeah. So anyway, like, thank you so much for being that person, because there's a lot of folks that aren't that way, and it's been a big help to me, and just talking to you and learning more about you. I think the first time we talked, like, I didn't really know who you were. I basically posted on Twitter like, "Who should I have on?" And you were the top name that came up. So I'm like, "Cool, I'm going to reach out." And I had to sort of, and since episode 4, and I'm like in the 40s now. Um, I've spent a lot of time listening to your work, your podcasts, your documentaries, and I've got a much broader understanding, a much fuller context of sort of your background and what you're about. And it's interesting. We have a lot in common. I think I love listening to you talk to, like, Dr. Drew or Adam, about skepticism and anti-woo. And I was listening to an episode, I think yesterday, you and Dr. Drew talking about I think he was talking about, as a therapist, his ability to, like, almost do the psychic thing, right? I don't know if you remember that conversation where he can sort of, like, he's picking up on weird things. And I know that he's a rational guy too,
Yeah.
but I could tell that Dr. Drew was a little bit more on the, if you want to call it, the woo side, than you are. And I was very much in that skeptical camp too. So I think we have a lot in common when it comes to just skepticism in general, sort of a view of the world, the universe, maybe about life and death. And so that leads me to my second point I wanted to cover with you, which is, like, number one, so happy you're here. I know you got the cancer diagnosis again, super
Yeah.
prolonged, based on when you should have got the recurrence, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to tell you thank you. I'm really happy that you're here, still with us, still kicking. And man, I just wish nothing but happiness and health for you going forward, because you're doing so much great work.
Thanks. Yeah. Just for your audience, I had leukemia 17 years ago, and they told me that, the type of leukemia I had, they caught it late stage. So I was lucky to be alive after chemo.
Hmm.
And so it's like, "Hey, we got it. We've knocked it into remission, but this kind of cancer will grow back in your bone marrow." And of course, my first question was, "How long before I have to go through all this crap again?" Because cancer never hurts. Chemo can suck. It's just the way it is.
Right.
And I think everyone out there has been through some sort of chemo, or have a parent or a friend or brother or sister who's been on chemo, and it just sucks. So I said, "Okay, how long?" And they said, "Well, if you make it 5 years, consider that a win. Some people make it 3 or 4 years." And I asked a stupid question. I said, "What's the longest?" My doctor was this research scientist she was at Cedar Sinai in Los Angeles at the time. And she was like, "I think there was some guy that, some anomaly. He went like 8 or 9 or 10 years,
Hmm.
which was like double the amount of time." And she goes, "Look, if you get to 5, if you hit 6, consider that a big win." So I was like, "Okay, come on, 6." And I probably told this story on your podcast before, but it's worth repeating. I was walking out, I was getting ready to get up and walk out of her office, and I'd become friends with my doctor because we had a mutual friend in common. And I said to her, I said, "Hey, doc, look, I'm in Hollywood. I work with a lot of celebrities and what have you. And I'm hearing I should be juicing around the clock. I need to get every vegetable juice in the world in me. Someone's trying to convince me to buy the Juicer 3000 or something, like a big giant juicer. And then other people are telling me I need to drink up to 8 ounces of wheatgrass per day. And I made a joke. I said, I had an ounce one time and I burped it for like 3 days. I couldn't imagine having 8 ounces a day. That's a lot. And she was like, yeah, there's no proof that any of that works. And I said, that's interesting. Is there anything out there that will work? Any kind of day to day protocol? People say do yoga, be more mindful, all the woo woo stuff that you learn when you live in Hollywood, or at least you hear about. I had celebrity clients, they would have shamans come into their house with smoke, like smoking their house with like weeds that they found out in the Santa Monica Mountains. I'm trying to think of the name of that weed that they would use.
Some sage, probably.
Sage, yes. It's the worst smelling weed in the world. They would and they would burn it and smoke it. I was like, is your house on fire? It's like, oh no, my house was just, we got the bad juju out today with my shaman showed up. And people, look, I know you think this is crazy, but you're in the tech industry,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There was at the time there was feng shui was a big thing.
I remember.
Face all of your furniture a different way and you're going to change your life, right? So I said, is there anything, can I feng shui myself to 6 years? What will get me to 6 years? And she said, she goes, you're that no sugars, no grains guy, right? I was like, yeah, what does that have to do with it? And she goes, there's enough research that's developing. It's not out there. You got to remember, we're talking 2007.
Mhm.
She goes, there's enough information out there for us to realize that if you get enough, or if you stay off of sugar of all sorts, that cancer may not grow, or it's going to be retarded to a degree. It won't grow as fast.
Right.
And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah, stay off of sugar. So I took it seriously. I cut out all sugars, all grains, I didn't eat processed foods anyway, but that meant juice, fruit juice, vegetable juice, any kind of carbohydrate. I just cut it out of my diet. I was on the strictest kind of early day keto diet, Atkins diet, no Atkins bars, nothing, just meat, dairy, fat, protein. That was it. And lo and behold, I went 17 years. I just went back from chemo again. I'm just finishing chemo now. And my new doctor here in Virginia, he's marveling at it. He was like, you went through chemo and you just breezed through. You didn't even get sick. I was like, yeah, I eat on point. They don't want to hear that though.
Right, right.
And he made a reference. He goes, huh, you went 17 years. I went, yeah. Would you like to know how? He's like, well, I guess you were lucky. I said, well, I can tell you how. He's like, oh yeah, genetically you're a freak. Do you really want to know what? He had no concern about how I went 17 years.
Wow.
Crazy, right? I didn't mean to take over your
No,
podcast.
no, that's really interesting because I think you alluded to it during by the way, new documentary, Dirty Keto's out. I watched it like 4 times. It's awesome. Everyone go watch it. It's great. I think one of the quotes, I don't have it exactly right, but essentially was when you're certain that's when you know you're off course. Like you're wrong. Like if you're 100% certain about something, and I think that's the problem sometimes with medical professionals and people with nutritional, almost like a religion, right? Like I'm in the carnivore camp. I'm a vegan. When you're convinced that you've got everything sorted out, you lose any sort of curiosity. And I think people get locked in the box. And this is so crazy that you would have such an outlier result as 17 years between chemo episodes, and the oncologist would be like, not even curious why you think. What's your hypothesis as a patient as to what did this? Like that's either extreme arrogance or just being blinded by what you think you know to be true.
Yeah, yeah, and look, he's a good guy. He saved my life, and like several things happen. Like this time around, they put you on all these other drugs, and to because when you go through this chemo, plus my white blood cells were in the ditch, they put you on all sorts of antiviral and antibacteria, antibiotics, and this whole thing. And I started breaking out. I had hives head to toe. So then they went, okay, we're going to give you some a steroid to fight
Mm.
that, right? I can't remember the name of the steroid. The one that drives people nuts. Um,
Not sure. Know what you're
not,
talking
cort-
about.
not cortisone, but it's the one that is not like a steroid where you pump up.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
steroid. That would have been nice, but it was prednisone.
Prednisone. Okay. Yep.
So now I have hives head to toe. They give me prednisone. I'm supposed to be getting a lot of rest at night. I'm bouncing off the ceiling from the prednisone. So, like 2 days after being on prednisone, I called the nurse practitioner and I said, her name was Sam. I said, Sam, listen, I, you know, you guys gave me a drug to fight a problem I didn't have. I'm on an antiviral, but I didn't have a virus. I'm on an antibacteria, I don't have a problem. And now you're giving me a drug to counteract those, and I can't fall asleep. And now I'm guessing you're going to give me a sleeping pill. She goes, well, yeah, that is the next thing. I said, how about you guys take me off of all of it while I'm on chemo? She goes, that's not what we do. And I said, could you at least let me talk to the doctor? She gets the doctor for me a couple of hours later. He had to do rounds, and I made my case to him, and he goes, you don't go to work, right? You're staying at home. I went, yes, sir. And he goes, okay, you can't go anywhere. You can't do anything because you can't get sick. You can't get
Right. Right.
COVID or anything because it can take you out. Right. I had to be like Howard Hughes. I just stayed in my house, but the hives went away. I was able to sleep the next night. They took me off of all the medication. I had so much energy during chemo. I started riding my spinner. I'm pointing over here because it's right next to me. And there's also a rowing machine, a Concept 2 rowing machine here in my gym. I started working out while I was on heavy chemo.
Wow.
Now, okay, no one, and I'm going in to get, every time I have to go in to get my treatments, they're like, wow, your blood pressure is still stable. Nothing's changing. Oh my God, your electrolytes seem, because I was taking my electrolytes every day. I was doing everything that they don't tell people to do, right? Oh my God, you're stable, your blood pressure is low, everything is perfect. And I'm 62 years old. I'm 61. I'm going to be 62 in about a month. And no one said, how are you doing this? Ever. Not once. Right?
Wow. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, gave me the go ahead to start traveling again long before they told me, oh, you can't travel for 6 months. I had to go to LA for meetings. They took a blood test. They went, your blood's strong enough. You can go. I'm already strong enough to travel.
Well, I'm not surprised, Vinny. Like, you probably don't know the details of my story, but I'm 7 months in to sort of fixing my health right now. I'm down 56 pounds, and it's all.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and it's all due to essentially what you preach, NSNG. Although I started carnivore, but I've you got a couple of things in there, kimchi, if you probiotic type
Sure.
of things, some veggies, but I'm like no carb. It's working great, and I've never felt better like in my whole life. Like this is, and I'm almost 50. And for me, it's like, man, I'm surprised at the amounts of energy. And like, I continually am surprised day to day, just how much better I feel. day over day, and I'm just stacking them. So like I can't imagine somebody who's done it long term as you are. You know, I'm just not surprised whatsoever that you're having that result.
Yeah. And but modern no one's asking me, right? So that's the crazy part. And but that's fine because I'm not a study. I'm an N1 experiment, right?
Hmm.
I'm not asking them to go, hey, like way back in the 1860s, Banting wrote the letter on corpulence, and people looked at it and went, hey, one guy tried this and it worked. And that's how people started losing weight
Hmm.
by cutting out carbohydrates and just eating, fat and protein. No one's looking at me today going, oh, yeah, they're not looking at me the way they looked at Banting because, as you said, everyone is certain about what they want to believe in. And it doesn't matter if it's food, religion, drugs, politics, everybody is certain. Especially, we're going through an election cycle right now.
Hmm. Yeah.
The people who are going to vote for Harris is going to vote for Harris, right? There is no convincing those people. The people who are going to vote for Trump, they're going to vote for Trump. There is no convincing. There's going to be like 1% of our population that's going to choose the president based on the whim of that day, right? That's how certain people are anymore. Everybody's like heels dug in and I ain't moving,
Yes, and
right?
it's getting worse, right? Like I know you've been around a while. I have too. I've paid attention to the way things go, and it feels like the division is getting pretty bad out there. Like everyone is getting, pretty ossified in their position, entrenched, and they're not flexible. They're not talking to each other, which is a big problem. I haven't seen anything like this in a long time, or maybe ever.
I've never seen it in my lifetime. Right. And even watching the Olympics, have you been watching the Olympics at all?
Not a bunch. I've just bungee in here and there as I see it on somebody's TV. I don't watch any TV at home, so I'm pretty. Unless it shows up somewhere in social media, I don't really see a lot of it. Or I'm walking by a TV screen in a restaurant or something. I'm just not really checked in.
I've always been into the Olympics, and luckily I have a Peacock,
Mm.
Peacock channel or whatever, because my wife's an actress and she's on Peacock right now, so we have Peacock, and it's like, oh, this is great. So every night I watch the recap. It's like a couple of hours, and the one thing I've noticed about the Olympics is it's not really a team anymore, even though they'll say that the United States has X many of medals and so many are gold. And everybody is now an individual in the Olympics,
Hmm.
right? Simone Biles is her own brand, probably the most popular person there, right? Every one of these track stars, they bring them out as if they're a rock star. Like they don't. It used to be back in Ben Johnson's day or whatever. They would walk out with their track shoes in their hand. They would sit on the track and put their shoes on, and now they do a thing. They come out. They got lights flashing and fireworks going, and here comes so and so. Everyone's a brand,
Hmm.
right? Everyone. I mean, the pole vaulters, everyone, right? As a matter of fact, do you know the biggest pole vaulting story this year?
Unfortunately, I think I do.
I was just talking about this on my podcast, which I did right before this, just for your audience that might not be watching the Olympics. The guy from France, of all places, he's got a prodigious midsection. And I'm
It's
not
one way to
talking
put
about
it.
his cock. you know, he, his cock hit the top bar, and that's what knocked the bar down. So, he has this prodigious front side, right?
Yeah.
And I was just talking to Anna about this in my podcast. I said, because of his manhood, he got knocked out. He's not going to medal. Here's the question. Would you rather be the guy who got the gold or the guy who's known for his male member hitting the top bar because it was so prodigious? I think I would forego the gold because guess what? Nobody knows who won the gold.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. Like literally nobody would have talked about the winner of the pole vault if it wasn't for that situation.
You never hear even if they set a new Olympic record and world record, You would not know that. A pole vaulter will never be a household name, ever. But this guy is. That's all anyone said. Did you see the Olympics?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the pole vaulter. That's where we are.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, to the athletes, right? You're right. I think everyone's turning into a brand. But you look at the way the Olympics is structured, and it's pretty corrupt. Like these cities get all this funding, and the Olympic Committee, the bureaucracy, all these people that aren't competing get all the money, and the athletes get nothing. Right. So they're trying really hard to get their picture on a box of Wheaties or some endorsement deal or something. Like, I can't blame them, man. Like, a lot of these folks, remember the Olympics a couple of years ago, there was like all these people, Home Depot sponsored them, right? And they were all working day jobs at Home Depot to pay the bills. And it's like, damn, you are the best athletes on the planet. And you're getting none of this money? Like the broadcasters, the advertisers, you're getting none of it?
Well, Brent, you're maybe 12 years younger than me. There was a time when if an Olympic athlete earned a living, they couldn't be Olympic athletes. It was the same for college athletes. When I played college football back in the 80s, if you got caught with a job, you lost your scholarship, right? And the way we got money, and it was such a backhanded thing. It was like, well, wait, how can these guys live day to day if they're amateur athletes and they're not allowed to work? We were given money by alumni under the table, right? And it was never spoken about. Some players got cars, you name it. Right? Stuff was given to you. And that's the way it was. Now these athletes can use their own image, rightly so, to do their thing. And the Olympic people are the same way, right? They can now earn money, but it's turned everyone into a brand. So we don't have a national team anymore. As a matter of fact, a portion of the NBA, went to Serbia to play for Serbia or to France to play for France. So the NBA is playing against the NBA in the Olympics now, right?
Yep.
Tennis players, why even show up? You had the U.S. Open, you had the Wimbledon. Now we see the same people playing again in the Olympics. So it's not amateur athletes at all anymore. It's all professional athletes.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely changed. It's wild.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
It's fine. I love taking detours, man. I have ADD, so I love just going wherever it goes. But I did want to talk about some points in your documentary, if you have time to do that.
Absolutely.
Man, I loved the opening. It's hilarious because I was getting ready to fire up the documentary, and I said in my head to myself, I'm like, God, you know what? I really don't usually like documentaries because they're mostly propaganda. And the very first line you opened up with was about propaganda in the keto industry. So I love the fact that you're like I said, so skeptical. You're very rational. You're very critical of not just government, but also institutions like academia, the ones that are funding studies, as well as industry, right? Like typically I find people get on a team. I'm pro-industry and I'm anti-government. I'm pro-government, I'm anti-industry. And you've got this sort of broad rational view of skeptical of everything, which I absolutely adore. So kudos to that. I really was happy to see it open with that and sort of move on to some of the the excesses, or it's really fraud, right? It's fraud in the industry, in the keto industry. So maybe you could just talk generally about kind of like the high level overview of kind of what the documentary is about, what you're aiming for, what you're targeting, and what your intention is.
Yeah, and I think so that your audience can know, I think my opening words were, here's how propaganda works.
Yeah, that's it.
Boom, you go right from, Fat Squirrel Productions, my company, and then I pop on screen. Here's how propaganda works. It's like, whoa, this guy didn't waste any time, right?
Loved it.
So, yeah, look, I'm not a whistleblower. I'm just a guy standing in front of a girl, like the movie says. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I do.
I'm a girl standing in front of a guy, Julia Roberts. Notting Hill, I think that one was. I mean, I don't know.
And reprised in Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds redid that line in Deadpool, the original one.
Did he really?
He did.
See, I don't watch. I'm not a. You're a nerd. I'm not a nerd.
I'm not a nerd. I travel about 30% of the time internationally. I've been on a lot of long fucking flights, and I've watched a ton of movies that I normally wouldn't have watched just because of that.
Yeah, can we digress for a second?
Sure, let's do it.
I I watch movies when I'm on a plane. I'm like a horse on the trail. A horse will never eat dandelion if you throw it in his stall, but on a trail, he will bend down and eat dandelion,
You-
no problem.
yep,
I'm like that on a plane. It's like I'm on a plane. Yeah,
same.
I will watch anything.
Anything. Yep, you got it.
Right? Okay, so look, propaganda, is that where we were?
That's where we were, man. I wanted you to sort of indict the fake keto industry.
Well, look, I'm one of the guys that came up. I didn't create the word keto, but I'm one of the guys that brought the newfangled ketosis to the internet. Before that, it was Atkins diet,
Hmm.
right? Before that, it was letter and corpulence and the whole thing, you know. So I was part of the new group, one of the forefathers, along with Gary Taubes, Nina Teicholz.
Dr. Nina Teicholz now.
Yeah, Dr. Nina Teicholz. We were just texting back and forth earlier. We're all good friends, right? And none of us knew each other. We all started talking about this. We weren't trying to make money or do anything else. And Gary had a book out there first, probably Good Calorie, Bad Calorie was the first one. And I think I came in there at some point with Fitness Confidential. And then Gary came with Why We Get Fat, or they were all right around there. And then coming in right after that was Nina Teicholz with Big Fat
Hmm.
Surprise. And we all had a different take on the same thing. And people was like, aren't you jealous of her or him? It's like, well, I've sold more books than both. So um,
But
as
who's
long as I'm on
counting?
top, I'm good. Um, so, yeah, you know, we all are good friends and we all talk all the time. But we started this industry and we started using this word ketogenic. And then, you know, and by the way, there was another guy out there. There was Dr. Stephen Finney and Jeff Volek, but they were research scientists and not many people were paying attention to them at the time. So we had more people paying attention to us than them. And I used to tell people all the time, go look for Stephen Finney and Jeff Volek. Those guys have done the research, right? But the word came out and ketogenic got changed to keto.
Hmm.
And we were off and running. And it didn't take industry very long to go, okay, we need to come up with keto products. And they started making up stuff. Like the first time someone asked me about net carbs, I was like, huh?
Mm.
How does that work? You know, Vin, net carbs. And I was like, what is a net carb? And they did it a few different ways, right? One was you can magically subtract fiber from total carbohydrates, right? So if you got 20 grams of carbohydrates and 11 of those are fiber, you can now say you have 9 grams of net carbs.
Yeah, who came up with that? I loved in the documentary. You took a little shot at Thomas DeLauer. I saw that little clip in there. I know you. Everyone watches him and everything, but that was a funny
Yeah,
moment of the documentary for me.
yeah. I nobody was safe in that documentary. But the bottom line is, when you start seeing things like net carbs, and then you start seeing, oh, you can start subtracting fake sugar from real sugar and all this stuff. And then I remember the first time I saw keto certified
Mm.
written on a product. Keto cert. It's like, what does that mean? Keto certified. What? What? And then I went down the rabbit hole, and you saw it in the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
You know, I named the names at first. My attorneys, when the attorneys got hold of the movie, you could see I had to blur everyone out and take their names
You
out.
did.
But the names and the photos of these people were up there. It's not a government agency. It's, I want to say one of them was a music producer, one was a cage fighter, and the other one was a lawyer or an agent.
I
So,
thought it was a writer for some magazine or something.
yeah, it was like 3 or 4 people got together and just bought the name, and they charge you like 5 grand to become keto certified.
Oh,
And that's it.
lot,
That's it.
lot of rackets out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Think we all know the net carb thing is bullshit. There's no magic formula that just by virtue of consuming some fiber with it will make it go away. I think we can all agree that consuming fiber with your carbs, for example, eating a whole piece of fruit as opposed to like a fruit juice, that has beneficial effects. I think there's no real quarrel with that, right?
No, because people ask me, it's like, well, you say I can eat an apple, hmm but you say I can't drink apple juice. That's correct, because apple juice is just a glass full of sugar that it takes way more than one apple to make. It takes a bunch of apples to
Hmm.
make one glass of apple juice. And when you eat an apple, it works kind of the way Ozempic works when you think about it. Since there's water and fiber, and the sugar is suspended in the fiber,
Hmm.
it releases from your stomach into your small intestines, and when it goes through your liver and everything else, the sugar is more even because of the fiber and the water and everything else. That's slowing down the process. When you drink a fruit juice, that's a sugar hit. That's like eating cake and ice cream.
Might as well inject it.
You're going right in, right? You're going to spike insulin like there's no tomorrow. So eating 5 apples still not a good idea. But if you're enjoying an apple or a pear, I would tell people to stay away from tropical fruit like bananas and pineapples and papayas and some of these because they're so high in sugar, right? So there's nuance within what we're talking about, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, there is. And I think that you do a great job of keeping everything very, very simple. I think there's so many people complicate too many aspects of nutrition. And I had Dr. Lindy Louise on, and she had the exact same take. And I really am vibing with this, which is like, hey, man, eat whole foods, be protein fat heavy, eat some vegetables, eat just real whole foods, and you're going to be way better off than 90% of the American population. You don't have to overcomplicate it. And I think that was the brilliance of the NSNG brand is like look, like this is a really simple thing to do. If you do these two things, like exclude these two types of things, you're going to be way better off, and it's a very easy lifestyle for people to follow, I think.
Yeah. And, look, tonight I had fruit with my hamburger. I had a big giant, probably 11 or 12 ounces of hamburger meat. And I had an avocado. Avocado is a fruit
Hmm.
that's low in carbohydrates. It's got fiber. It's got a lot of healthy fats in it. Most nights I'll have either broccoli or cauliflower, just florets, right?
Hmm.
Along with my meat. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not some kind of zealot. I'm not some kind of carnivore zealot. I don't think anyone really needs to be. And I also don't think that fruits and vegetables are trying to kill us, which is kind of the
Yeah.
new thing that's going around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so weird, and especially you see it almost seems like some folks go full circle. Like, I don't mean to call other people out, but like, Dr. Paul Saladino, hey, carnivore MD, and I get it. Like, folks that have the autoimmune stuff, that seems like a godsend if you go straight carnivore. And I think they are more sensitive oftentimes to some of the plant chemicals and various things, right? Like, I get that, right? But he seems like he's gone the full circle, like fully carnivore, and then all of a sudden it's like now we're doing fruit, now we're doing honey, now we're doing all these other things, and it's very odd to see some of that in that community.
Yeah, people who can't, I look, I don't have anything against Paul, but I have trouble keeping up with his message because it over the past, I think he was on my show back in 2015, 16, 17, somewhere, and he was just getting started and he was talking a good game, had him on the show. And then before I know it, he's talking fruit. Okay, some fruit is fine. Yeah, I agree with that. No, you need more fruit. Okay. Now you need Manuka honey.
Mm.
And I'm just sitting there going, are you just making this shit up as you go? I mean, what are you doing?
I don't know if it's that, or it might be some sort of anxiety spectrum thing, right? Like, I don't call it a disorder, but some people get very anxious about their environment. You've seen during the pandemic people with the incessant hand washing and very high levels of paranoia about germs. I think people get in that mode, especially if you get onto the TikTok and they get onto the Instagram and they see all these influencers that are telling them this thing's going to kill you, this plant's going to kill you, this chemical, this thing, like, and it's like, yeah, sure, like certain things in, the dose makes the poison, that old adage, but ultimately, like the thing that they're focused on, I think might be driven by anxiety as opposed to actual, hard science. And like, is this thing really that bad for you, or are you just anxious?
Yeah, look, there could be some truth behind that. I had moved out of California late in 2019, several months before the pandemic. And of course, my companies are still in California. And then the pandemic hit. And, where I live in Virginia, we were all locked down like everyone else for a couple of weeks. But then, you know, even though there was mandates and this and that, people like the hardware store was like, hey, we got to open.
Hmm.
And people would just open their stores, right? And didn't matter what the cops said. No one bothered them. And we would just go shopping in stores and do whatever. And I remember talking to my business partner in California. This is probably in 21. By 21, 2021, we, even though they were still in pandemic, second year pandemic, and we were all out at restaurants all the time. And I'll never forget saying to my buddy Andy, I was like, yeah, I got to go, man, because it's 3 hours difference. We're taking my daughter out. It's her birthday. We're taking it to, we're going to eat at this. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's like, what do you mean? It's my daughter's birthday. I'm going to take her out for dinner. Like, what do you mean you're going out for dinner? Like at a restaurant where they give you food. And he was like, so you're going to sit in a restaurant? I was like, yeah, yeah. Oh, what's the big deal? He was like, so there are restaurants open where you are. It's like, yeah, all of them. He couldn't buy into that. And then I remember maybe 6 months after that, I was in LA and I, it was the first time I really wore a mask. This was like almost 2 years into the pandemic. It's the first time I wore a mask for any significant amount of time.
Hmm.
There would be cursory moments where you walked into Whole Foods and someone would say, put a mask on, or they would hand you one or something. But I went to LA and then I was driving and I stopped because I know LA very well. I was like, oh, I'm going to grab a Starbucks, get some heavy cream. I walked in and people started yelling. And I didn't realize they were yelling
Mm,
at me at first.
yep.
It was like, I walked in, I was like, mask, 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 get a mask on your face. What are you doing? Mask, mask. And I was like, is someone going to shoot? I didn't know what was going on, but they were yelling at me to put a mask on. And I was like, all right, let's all calm down. I still had the mask from the airplane. I put it on and then everyone just calmed down. But they looked at me as if I was a lunatic because the rest of the world wasn't doing that. These people were still freaked out, right? Somehow they were still freaked out.
Well, and I think that exactly aligns with my point, is that with that pandemic situation, you had this 24/7 spigot of fear porn coming from the media all the time. And somebody who is
Right.
predisposed to that type of anxiety is going to get just amped up to level, 15. And I think you get the same thing online with a lot of these TikToks and Reels. You have influencers that are trying to scare people, and they'll pick something that might have a nugget of truth to it, but they'll way inflate it, like as far as the danger, like oh, this, there might be this minuscule amount of danger, or it may impact somebody, like a really small group of population, way more than everybody else, right? Like with autoimmune type of stuff, and then just scare the shit out of people. And then typically it's like, well, I've also got a product to sell. Step right up.
Yeah. Look, at first it was, you got to leave all your Amazon packages outside, let the sun hit them for a month. And then you can, and my wife was like, oh, no, I said, honey, think about this. If there's a super virus that's that strong, that's living on a box outside in 10-degree weather right now with the sun beating on it with 10 we're all dead anyway.
Exactly. It's over.
There's no surviving this, right? And she goes, really? And I went, yeah, really. It doesn't work that way. Whatever they're telling us right now, it's all BS. It's got to be because, we're seeing the governor of California going out to the French Laundry
Mm.
to, to eat, and he doesn't have a mask on. And you see this guy without a mask and that guy. And the first time I got on an airplane, right, to go out to LA, I got to the airport at Dulles in
Hmm.
DC, and there were, mask, mask, mask. If we see you with your mask down, you won't get on your flight. It was the first time I really paid attention to keep a mask. You go through TSA, mask,
Yep.
you hear the thing, TSA, if you do this, you're out of here. I finally get on the flight. I still have the mask on, and they, FFA rules. If you pull that mask down, even when you're in the bathroom, you will be, prosecuted to the full extent of the law. All this stuff, right? I think, wow, I got to keep this mask up. And then the woman came by and she goes, "Would you like something to drink or eat?" And I was like, "Not to, but I'm not wearing this mask."
Oh God.
And she goes, "Oh no, you could take it down to eat." And then the woman next to me said, "Get a glass of wine." I said, "But I don't drink wine." And she goes, "Get a glass of wine." I said, "May I have a glass of wine?" And she goes, "Absolutely." So I turned to the woman. I said, "What's with the wine?" I said, "Would you like it?" She goes, "No, leave it right there on your tray. As long as you have a glass of wine in front of you, you could keep the mask off."
Yep.
And then I looked around and went, "Okay, is it really that important to have a mask on if they're telling you don't pull it down even when you urinate, yet glass of wine, you could do the whole flight, no problem."
Yeah, that was a crazy time. Let's hope we don't ever go back to that again.
I'm never going back there.
That
I
was
never went to begin with.
well. See, I was in Seattle at the time when that kicked off, and I've since moved to Nashville, so I'm in a little bit more of
A little better.
a relaxed place than Seattle for sure. Holy smokes, man! Let's not do that again. Um, you did talk about something that reminded me of something in the movie, which is GLP-1 agonist. Man, what do you think about the old Ozempic and Wegovy and that class of drug?
We don't even we don't know how bad they are yet. That's how bad. And people go, "Oh, we've been using these for years as to bring your A1Cs down." First off, it's never worked to bring your A1Cs down enough to where you're healthy. Case in point, if you watch a Manjaro or a Wegovy or a Ozempic commercial, the three leading brands of GLP-1s, they all say the same thing. Take this drug and you could get an A1C as low as 7. Now, for your audience,
It's not very good.
5.6 is the highest number you can have. When you're 5.6 A1C,
Pre-diabetic, right?
you're diabetic. So 5.5 is the last number before they call you officially diabetic. 5.5 is pre-diabetic.
Mm.
So what they're saying is, take this drug and you will still be perfectly sick. Does that make sense? They say it in the commercial. This is not me cherry picking something. They tell you this could bring, and they got heavyset people dancing around, Ozempic on the bus, twirling around. We're all eating cake and pie and we're taking Ozempic. But it ain't working. It's not working, not even a little bit, because you're taking a drug. Can you imagine taking cough syrup for like months and months and months, and you're still coughing? You would go, "Well, this doesn't work," right? So it doesn't work for its intended purposes, but it does help you lose some
Well, it
weight.
depends on what you mean by intended purposes, right? Because there's a lot of folks that are using this to lose weight, right? Like this is their
Okay,
miracle.
so
Their
that's
miracle.
off brand. That's off brand, right?
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I didn't realize that these were
Mm.
actually strictly meant to reduce A1C. I didn't know
That's
that.
what they were all invented for. People go, "Oh, Vinny, they've been around forever." The A1Cs.
Mm.
But now people are taking a lot more because they figured out if you take a lot more, you can lose weight. So do you know how the GLP-1s work? You heard Dr. Bigman talk about it in my movie.
Yeah. It's
Nope.
talk about the well. There's a couple of things, right? Because it stimulates or simulates glucagon, right? Which is like the inverse
Right.
of insulin, right? And so it does a couple of things. I'm not super in detail, but I do know it induces peristalsis, right? So it slows down your digestive tract moving along, and stuff just sort of sits and make you feel kind of full and yucky. I'm aware of that. Also, aware of what is it? Fat cell hyperplasia. So instead of having a very large, fat cell, it stimulates the growth of new fat cells, which are supposedly more insulin sensitive, right? I guess that's how it does some reduction in A1C. I'm such a layperson, though. I don't really get it full.
Well, yeah, you're getting it. You're hitting a lot of nails and a lot of heads and a lot of nails. So yes, and by the way, when you have to eventually stop taking a drug,
Mm.
now you have more fat cells, and if you go and now you're just going to get twice as fat as you were before. And the other thing is,
Less
just
muscle
for your
mass, right?
audience,
Less muscle
say
mass.
again.
Less muscle mass. Like you get a
Well,
reduction.
that's the thing. Exactly. So let's say you weighed 300 pounds, right? And you lost 100 of those pounds naturally, no drugs.
Mhm.
You're going to probably lose about 20 or maybe 25% of your weight in muscle and bone mass, right? So if you lose 100 pounds, you're going to lose 25 pounds of muscle, and that's not good. Muscle, soft tissue, and bone mass, all included, right? But you lost 100 pounds, and that's very good. You went from 300 to 200, and if you start working out, you can now put some of that muscle back on. You can work it back on.
Mhm.
That's a good thing. If you're taking a GLP-1, you're losing 1 to 1. So if you lose 100 pounds,
Wow.
you're going to lose 50 pounds of muscle, soft tissue, and bone. That ain't healthy. And you're making new fat cells. So as soon as you stop taking it, you're going to have less muscle, less bone, and even more fat. Good luck.
Yeah, and your BMR is going to be reduced significantly too, because all that muscle
It,
is not
like
bioactive,
you,
right?
like you could not believe. We're going down a road, and people go, Vinny, why do you hate people? I have a sister-in-law who's losing weight on Wegovy or one of them. I can't remember which one she's on. I have a lot of friends, and I'm happy for them. They're, oh my God, finally is heaven sent, and they've lost 100, 150 pounds, and that's all great. They look terrible. They look. They don't look like people look when they normally look. We've heard Ozempic boobs,
Mm.
Ozempic face, Ozempic,
Yeah.
because it's taken from your bone mass, it's taken from your musculature, and your cheeks is where you can see it. Right, is making these people look very sick. We're going down a road we shouldn't be going down, but everybody's happy.
Yeah, I feel like it's something where we're going to find out down the road some of the negative consequences. It almost reminds me of the old uh, back to go back to the pandemic. Some of the pharmaceuticals that were introduced during that time period. It's like you sort of find out later some of the adverse
Yeah.
effects, right? I think we're going to see this, uh, and not only the side effects that are going to probably be found out way too late, and a bunch of people going to be hurt. But talk to me about the rebound effect, because I think that's really important to note as well. Somebody might be considering this.
It's going to come back with a vengeance. So when you stop, you know, oh my God, it's just not good. I can't find one doctor that I talked to behind the scenes that's saying that this is a good thing, that we're using these drugs to do this, especially if you use Wegovy, because it's just a higher level of GLP-1s,
Hmm.
and it slows your stomach down so much that the food gets putrid in your stomach. And people taking Wegovy will tell you the burps smell like roadkill
Oh God.
because food is just putrefying in your stomach, because it's just sitting there. Can you imagine eating something and it's just sitting in your stomach for days and days? Remember the football player Walter Payton?
I do.
He died of a rare liver disease, right? And the disease did a thing where it slowed down your digestion, and the first thing he noticed was he would eat something and he would still be burping it the same thing like 3 days later, and it got more and more putrid.
Mm.
Right? These people are doing this with a drug, right? Now, I'm not saying you're going to end up with a liver disease like Walter Payton, but I'll never forget reading that. It was written about him. It was like, yeah, he just, that's how he figured out something was wrong. And he went to the doctor and they found out he had this horrible liver disease. using a drug to try to get healthy like that, when there's an alternative that works better, I just don't see it. I just don't see it, you know?
Yeah, it's like it seems like it's endemic in our society is everybody wants the pill. Nobody wants to do any work or take any action themselves. They want to go to their doctor and have the doctor fix them. And I think that's a real problem because to your point, like it's not that hard to reverse things. Like I said, I'm down almost 60 pounds in 7 months and I don't feel like it's been particularly difficult.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah, 100%.
You're 50, 48? What did
49,
you say?
49. I'm
49.
almost there.
Were you on any medication or are you still on any
No,
medication?
no, I've actually been really lucky. I haven't been on any medication for like most of my adult life.
Yeah, most people that are turning 50, 5 medications, I think is the average. The
Jeez.
average American is on 5 medication. And I mean, when I do the consults every day, when I'm talking to the 400 pounders, the 500 pounders, because I talk to these people every day. That's why, you can say what you want about me, but I'm on the ground working with these people every day.
Mhm.
This is what I do. And 10, 12 medications is normal.
It's
Normal.
crazy.
Normal. They all have Cushing's disease to some degree. Do you know what Cushing's
I
is?
don't. What is that?
It's like fat dysplasia. Like you'll see somebody, they'll look like someone from Aesop's fable, where their stomach will be big and round and the whole thing, and they'll have like fat deposits around their neck, and their face will be really round, but their legs are really skinny.
Mhm. Yep.
You know, I mean, the things I hear and the things I see on a daily basis is just scary, right? And doctors will say, "Oh, once you have Cushing's, you can't reverse it." Yes, you can. It's called diet and exercise. I know it's not sexy and no one wants to do it, but there it is. And you can look at me and go, "Oh, Vin, it's easy for you." Yeah, no, it's only easy for me because I've been doing it my entire life. It's like brushing your teeth and wiping your ass. Those are two habits that you don't have to do. You don't, right? I've been to countries where you walk into a bathroom, go to India and find toilet paper
I
right there.
I've been to India many times. I know exactly
Okay,
what you're talking
it's
about.
optional.
Yeah.
Toilet paper is it? You tell an American you're going to get up from that seat without you take your T-shirt off and wipe your ass before you get up from that seat if there was no toilet paper. Am I correct?
Correct.
Right. But in other countries, toilet paper is an option. But if you do something every day, like exercise and watch what you eat, there's no option, right? You do that, right?
Yeah.
We can't afford not to.
Yeah, and I don't know how to get past that. I really just keep trying to encourage people, like, hey, it's not that hard. Get in a group of people, like get somebody that you can look up to that's doing it naturally, like you said, not shooting themselves up with steroids and a bunch of other nonsense. So it's just out there doing the right things. There's tons of people on Twitter, on social media, uh, on YouTube. You could look to like it's not that hard. You need some support. You need some help. You need a belief that you can do it. I think a lot of people just have lost this belief in themselves, and it's sad to me, man, because it's like people are capable of so much more and we're just kind of deteriorating as a society.
Yeah. And, as I say all the time, we're going to break under the weight of our own weight, financially. We won't be able to get an army together. We won't be able to handle, I mean, already, healthcare is in the dumper. No one can afford it.
Hmm.
And it's because of the shape we're in.
Yep, it's the old 80
Yeah.
20 rule. I think you have like 20% of the patients responsible for 80% of the spending. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
unnecessary. And it sucks too because it's not just a financial burden, but you work with these people. They're not happy people. They're not having, fulfilled lives. They're struggling. They're hurting. It's not good for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. No one's comfortable. It's like living in your own prison,
Mm.
right? Think about it when you were 60 pounds heavier. Think of the things you can do now that you couldn't do then. What's your goal? Would you have a goal to knock any more weight
Oh
off?
yeah, yeah. So the goal, and I set it December 27th of this last year, 2023, and I wanted 100 pounds in 1 year. And so December 27th of 2024, I'm going to be down 100 pounds.
Good. And if you're not, are you going to quit? Or are
Oh,
you going to go, you know what?
of course not.
Because In the words of the late great Vince Lombardi, strive for perfection. You won't get there, but you'll land somewhere near excellence.
Mm. Dude, that's
You know,
profound. That's good.
so let's say you lose 95 pounds. You know what? You went for perfection. You ended up at excellence, and now you reset a goal and go for the next year.
Exactly. And now I've got a 1 year of habits absolutely burned into my processing. And so it's like, because I'm already there. I don't have to think about it. Like all the things that I
Yeah.
need to do to maintain this, like it's just so damn easy. Yeah, I'm not, I'm obviously going to try to hit the goal and I'm pretty sure I'm going to attain it. But yeah, if I'm 95 pounds down, I'm not going to cry and have a pity party. Like there's no chance.
What was the impetus? What got you rolling?
Oh man, I just talked to my other guy, Gareth Martin, on his podcast about this, and it was just being disgusted with myself. Just so, it's one of those things where over time, if you're not paying attention to things and, life gets in the way. I had my wife had back surgery and there's all the excuses, right? Put like my very stressful job, traveling internationally, my body clock flipping all the time. I've got an entire list in my head that I kept as excuses for myself, but ultimately just looking at myself in the mirror and being like, you are a fat fuck. Like, what are you doing, right? And I got to that point where it was just like enough is enough, and I got to the point where it's like I'm almost 50. I was like, I'm gonna kill myself. I've got this
Yeah.
high stress job. I knew that I was getting towards a pre-diabetic state. I knew it wasn't healthy for me, and I would just look at myself and be like, "You've got to do something." So literally, if you go to my Twitter page, the pinned tweet actually shows my before and my after, or before and then my 6 month check-in, right? And the before was literally me on a whim going to my bathroom, pulling my shirt off, being like, I'm creating a Twitter account. I'm going to put this fucking picture online because I want to hold myself accountable, put myself out there and just see where I can go. Right. And that's where I set the goal. And it was just literally like one random day in December. I was just so sick of myself.
Yeah. I had a aha moment. As I mentioned, I played football, and at the end of football, I was still in college, and I still had another year, and I kept working out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I kept working out as if I was still an athlete. Just pumping iron, the whole thing, and not very much time passed. But you see, I wasn't eating on the training table anymore. I was now eating like regular college student, right? So, you know, eggs were a bridge too far, meat, fish, all the stuff we got on the training table, all the good animal protein. I started eating like straight pasta, and it's like, oh, you can make a whole pot of rice and just put butter on it, and that's a meal, right?
Sure.
And so everything just became starches, and I got up to like 270, 275, like that. Now, I still had a lot of muscle on me. I was still working out. And I was sitting at this restaurant in New Orleans with this girl. We were kind of halfway dating. We were really good friends and that kind of thing. And we're having a burger. I pulled a couple of bucks together. I was getting a burger and a couple of shakes. And I said to Janie, I said, yeah, I think the dryer is shrinking up my Levi's. And she goes, what do you mean? I was like, I can't even button them anymore. I just have the belt, like the pants are unbuttoned, but I have the belt around it because I couldn't afford $12 Levi's back in the day. And she just kind of smirked into her milkshake. And I was like, what? What are you talking? What's wrong? She goes, oh, sweetie, you're getting fat. I was like, wait, whoa. Come again? And I literally did one of these. I brought my arms up because I still had like 19-inch guns.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was still bench pressing close to 400 pounds. I was like, honey, look at this. Come on. She goes, oh, yeah, you still got the guns, your chest. You look good, but you're getting a gut. And I was like, what? I was like, really? I didn't even know it. I was 270 and I didn't get on the scale or anything. So that night, there was one of those full length mirrors that whoever left it in my apartment before me,
Mm-hmm.
it was on the back of my door. And I got out of the shower and I'm drying off and I knew that mirror was there. And I opened the door while I was still naked. And I looked at myself from the front. And then I turned to the side and saw this gut hanging out. I didn't, it was like an alien had shown up. I didn't
Mm.
know. It's like, Isn't it like that?
It is.
Brent,
It
you're sitting there
mm,
going, "It's an alien." And I pointed at my eyes in the mirror like I'm pointing right now into this camera, and I said, "This ain't happening.
mm,
This right here ain't happening." And I made a commitment that night. That night. The next day, because I compartmentalized all my money and I had $150 left in my bank account for gas that semester,
mhm,
I took 100 of it and bought a bicycle.
mm.
And I said, okay, if I want to get anywhere, I don't have gas money. I got $50 gas money left for emergencies. I got a bike. Got to ride the bike everywhere. Ride it to class, ride it to buy groceries, ride the bike. Right? Boom. Started doing that. I rode the bike so much I was wearing tires out. I would go to the local bike shop and ask them for tires that people took off their bikes.
Wow.
That still had a little thread on them and just kept riding. Right? That's how I started losing weight. It was like I started reading. At first I was reading magazines, like Shape magazine. It was like women magazines. They would say on the cover, lose 10 pounds in 10 days, rock hard abs by Friday, right?
Right.
And I'm reading these articles and I'm getting a degree in exercise physiology and nutrition. I'm going, wait a minute, none of this will work. So I started going to the library at Tulane and pulling up microfiche and reading all these articles, stuff like Banting,
Mhm.
Levels of Corpulence and all that, and started down that road. And that's how I figured it out on day one. And then started doing it with other people back in like 84, 83, and never looked back.
Man, that's awesome. So many parallels to our stories there. That I totally understand that feeling. Oh God, I still feel it. It gives me almost goosebumps thinking about it. It's
Yeah.
just like who the hell is this person, and where did you come from? It's just that slow day over day change you don't really notice, and you kind of start ignoring it too. Like, don't look in the mirror, don't pay attention, maybe cover yourself up with a hoodie, like, nope, kind of avoiding reality. Then one time you swing the door open, you look at yourself and you're like, what the fuck? That's powerful.
I had a client when I was in Hollywood. I worked with a lot of celebrities, but this guy was a director, pretty famous director. And sometimes the director will walk into the shot, and the camera will still be rolling.
Hmm.
So he walked into the shot to tell the actor something and the whole thing. And that night when they were going through, they call it the dailies, where
Hmm.
they go through the film, he saw a film from behind and he was like, "Who's that?" He didn't recognize himself.
Wow.
And then he turned around and was shocked to see he was looking at himself. And that's when I got the phone call. He told me the story. He goes, I saw myself on film the other night and I didn't recognize myself. It's pretty scary, right? When you don't know who you
It's
are.
terrifying,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we're about at time, man. That's probably a good place to end it. I wanted to give you a chance to plug your movie again, man. It is it's so good. I would encourage everyone to go see it.
Yeah. It's called Dirty Keto. It can only be found on Amazon in the US, unfortunately. It's not anywhere else, but we're trying to get it on Amazon Europe, Amazon Canada, and Mexico. It's not in any of those places yet, but we're working on it. And but right now, if you're in the US, you can get it on Amazon. The movie's called Dirty Keto. You can rent it or buy it.
Fantastic. Well, hey, I really, again, greatly appreciate your time. And this is such a great conversation, man. I really hope you come back sometime and do it again.
Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks a lot, Benny.